Hello, B0 team. My name is Georgi. I'm the creator and founder of Offset Map. I just got off a call with Sophie, and she'd asked me to send over maybe a short demo regarding the different functionality of Offset Map. I had some pre-recorded material, but I realized that it doesn't really have all the newest features, so I figured I'd make one fresh for you guys. So initially, as we see when the map is loaded, we have 8,050 projects, and these are coming from the four major registries. You see three different icons here, and they correspond to three different groupings that we have for the map. So we have an energy grouping, a nature grouping, and an industry grouping. Now, if we go ahead and click one of these buttons up top, we can quickly filter just to the nature projects available on the map. Likewise, this works for the energy and industry as well. And if we go ahead and select one of these projects, we can see, okay, what happens is it's populated with information from the registry and has links to documentation and the credit retirement data if it's available. Right now, because there's no retirement data, we're not going to have any transactional data. But if we go ahead and select one of these projects, we can see, okay, here is the credit retirement data, some SDG information, and likewise registry information. Because we have credit retirements, we now have transactions. Something worth mentioning is this credit retirement data is built on the fly. So if we click around and maybe find a different project here, we can see, okay, it's going to be dynamic and it's generated on the fly. So the main interactive portion of the map corresponds to this filter bar. So if we go ahead and select any sort of project type category, let's say solar in this case, we can filter with a search. When we select it, okay, now we're showing 177 projects corresponding to solar thermal. A really useful functionality with the filtering is that it's reactive based on the selected project type. So in this case, we're selecting solar thermal electricity. The countries will only show countries that have those projects. So in this case, if we select the Philippines, okay, we can see this is a solar thermal project in the Philippines. Likewise, if we add more, we can add additional countries. Okay, now we're showing solar thermal projects in Kenya. And this is just a really quick and easy way to filter between projects. So whatever is applied in this filter bar not only applies to the map, but also to this table. So right now we're just showing the solar thermal projects in the Philippines and Kenya. So really quick and useful way to filter through information. You can sort by different columns here. So for example, by estimated annual emission reductions, get an idea which of these projects is the largest. Now, if we go ahead and select a different category, let's use coal mine methane. The newest functionality for the filtering is actually a timeline tool. So right now we're selecting coal mine methane projects. And if we go back to 2001, okay, we don't have any projects. 2007, we still don't. Okay, 2013, we have our first project here from ACR. And this is by crediting period start date. It's a proxy. It's an approximation. This is not always going to be perfect across the board, but it gives us some additional information, and we can kind of figure out the dynamic over time of these projects and their development. And we can see here these numbers are changing as I scroll down, and okay, we're at 45 here, and that seems to be okay, the final number. So it's worth mentioning all these filters work together. We have here a toggle for a satellite layer. A lot of the added value comes from these two additional buttons here. So the first one I want to talk about are these layers, and they're grouped in three different categories: biodiversity, human, economic, and climate. These come from a variety of reputable sources. For example, we have here a resolve layer, and it shows the ecoregions and biomes. This is an interactive layer. You can select and quickly gauge the different ecoregions and biomes of the world. Likewise, we have one from Conservation International. This is for biodiversity hotspots, and so on. There's a variety of interactive layers. Maybe I can show here one from NASA. This is gross primary productivity, and this is coming straight from NASA's servers, so it's down, I think, this one to the 10-meter scale. And we can see the data is being loaded. I've created my own tools that work with some of this data. In this case, the GBIF, which is for biodiversity, and this is a species search. So if we enter a common name of an animal, let's say a giraffe, you have an autocomplete, and then through a variety of API calls, I'm populating the GBIF data directly onto the map. This is really useful in the context of scoping projects. If you have some biodiversity metrics you're interested in, just to show you that it works across a wide variety of animals. Here we're going to do a dolphin, and we can see, okay, now the dolphins are showing in the water, which is what you would expect. If we look at human economic layers, again, from a variety of sources, here we have a solar layer from the Solar GIS. We also have, again, kind of an interactive tool with World Bank data. If we select an indicator and select a corresponding year, and we activate the layer, it has an interactive layer that's loaded directly onto the map that gives us, again, through API calls, information regarding that indicator for that year. And finally, there's a variety of climate layers. There's a Köppen-Geiger climate layer. We have some World Resource Institute layers, this one regarding water risk, and so on. If you're interested, I recommend you look through them. I think they're all really interesting layers, especially in the context of climate change and offset projects. One last tool, and it's a relatively new tool. It's really useful for scoping projects, and it's the polygon tool. So right now, if we delineate an area using the markers on the actual map, we can generate these charts, and they correspond to the different databases that hold these projects. Here we have ACR, Verra, and Gold Standard. We have a histogram of the estimated annual emission reductions. And finally, we have project type groupings for that area. So here we see 31 projects. That in itself is all interesting, but this is actually an interactive chart element. So if we click on one of these bins, what we get is a ranked list in descending order of estimated annual emission reductions, and this is a really quick way to navigate to a project. So here we have a flaring for landfill gas, and say we want to click on the ACR projects, click on this. Okay, now we're showing, looks like a renewable energy project. This is just a really quick way to scope the area and figure out the kind of projects that are in the area and a variety of information regarding those projects. Now, one thing I didn't actually get to show Sophie is the data dashboard. So this is made with Dash and Plotly, and it's a fully interactive dashboard showing credit retirement information. I haven't preloaded this, so you're just going to see how long it takes to load generally. And the way it works is a lot of information here, but you have an interactive sunburst diagram, which basically shows all the project groupings and distributions for the whole map, broken down into 3 categories, and then further by project types. And what you see initially is all the projects loaded. So you have the credit retirement information for all the projects. This is by issuance year, retirement year, so the red being the retired and the blue being the remaining credits. And then you have this green line, which is agnostic of the years, just the retirements overall for that year. And similarly, you have information here regarding all the project types. This is basically just the trends for the different project type groups over time in descending order. So here we have energy industries, and we can see they kind of peaked early in the 2006-2007 range. And if we look at coal mine methane projects, we see there's 43 of them, and they've become more popular recently. Finally, we have here the groupings of the projects by continents and countries. So all of this is a lot of information, but this is actually an interactive chart. So if we select, for example, nature, we can see now that this chart has changed. It's now showing just the nature retirement information, likewise only nature projects, and similarly the groupings by country for nature. This goes all the way down the project type level. So if we select, for example, forest carbon, now we're showing the forest carbon retirement data we're showing when these projects were established, and we're showing where they are. In this case, they're in the US because this is only ACR. So if we just scroll around here, it's fully interactive. We can select, for example, wind. Now we're showing wind retirement data. It's a really intuitive, interactive dashboard. So that's all the functionality up to now of Offset Map. I recommend if you guys have any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to answer them, and I hope you enjoyed the demo.